Hello everyone, it's Earl Linfors with Actio Solutions. I want to welcome you back to our fourth session, the People Pillar, where we will be discussing the attributes that go with the data analyst, the data investigator, the data scientist. What are those things that make up those folks that are going to identify and use data? So let's get into it. So it all starts with data literacy. We say, well, what is data literacy? It is the ability to read, work, analyze, and communicate with data. There are four key functional areas associated with data literacy. So let's explore those a little bit. So reading data. So what's that all about? Well, it's understanding the different types of data, common data sources, and data presentation. And when we say types of data, this might be data that is static. This is data that might be aggregated with something else. This might be data that is something that upon further investigation could tell you a little more insight about something else. Maybe a predictive indicator, maybe a prescriptive indicator, but different types of data. Right? Common data sources, where these things reside, and what are the platforms that host those. And then data presentation, we'll get into that in a little bit. So working with data, what's that all about? Well, collecting, producing, and manipulating data. In order to work with data, you first have to have it. So, collecting, that's knowing where to go. That's knowing how to find that data, and if there are system owners, working with those responsible parties to get that data. So analyzing data, what does that mean? Well, in short, interpreting data and drawing conclusions. That's the analytics piece of analysis, is where you're using that data to determine an outcome or a condition that you are exploring. Communicating with data. So this is where we get back to the data presentation piece that we saw with reading data in the first bullet. So what does that mean? Well, that's presenting data findings that summarize the business use case. So typically any analysis starts with what is the problem we're trying to solve, as we said in some of our previous videos. So the summarization of that and putting that information so that it is consumable to the right parties is the objective. So where do we want to go with those four anchor points for data literacy? Well, it's reasoning with data, using data to navigate uncertainty, drive business decisions, and solve problems. That is the whole purpose of data literacy and developing data literacy attributes for personnel in the workforce. So let's move on to the 3 C's of data literacy. So the first C is curiosity. So what do we mean by curiosity? It's a fundamental aspect of data literacy. It's the desire to explore and understand the why behind the data. All right, it involves questioning assumptions, seeking deeper meaning, and being open to new perspectives based on data analysis. Some say individuals need to have the intellectual curiosity. Well, this is the interest. This is the baseline interest in the problem that has been laid before someone. And then what you want is folks in your ranks, in your respective business areas that work with the data. And if you're working with a process, I guarantee you there's always some type of problem or issue that you're experiencing in that problem or in that process where data would be valuable to rectifying that problem. So let's look at the second C. So creativity. So what do we mean by creativity? Well, it refers to the ability to think outside the box when working with data. All right? Not confining yourself to one and only one way of approaching data. Finding innovative ways to visualize, analyze, and interpret information to uncover hidden patterns and relationships. Well, again, we were talking about predictive and prescriptive. You can't have predictive and prescriptive conditions without patterns and relationships. And that is deducing conclusions and coming to an understanding of the relationship between different types of information that's out there. And that's where that creativity comes into play. really opening up the box and the mindset to what else can we do? What else can we explore to really get after the why? So critical thinking. So this is an important attribute. So what does this mean? Well, it involves evaluating the credibility of data sources. Right? Looking, is that information, is that data accurate, complete, and timely? And we've talked about this in previous sessions. Assessing the methods used to collect and analyze data. Are they sound? Are they repeatable? Is it reproducible? Can you make informed judgments based on the evidence presented? Are you really getting enough to come to a conclusive determination of the problem of interest? So folks, that was a quick and dirty on the people pillar. And the whole purpose of this, again, is to really zero in on employees in the workforce and managers and supervisors, process owners alike, getting those skill sets, those abilities in place so that there is a common understanding and drive to collect, analyze data, turn the data into information, information to knowledge, and knowledge into wisdom and practice. We talked about that a little bit before in one of our earlier sessions where we have the pyramid. It is the fundamental piece, data literacy, of the people, process, and technology. If we don't have the right people in the right place to make the right decisions, well, then the people, process, technology framework does not work. There is a critical dependency relationship for people with respect to process and technology. So that concludes our short session for today. Session 5 will be coming out soon, where we will talk about the process pillar, the repeatable steps, the design that generate and move and exchange data. That will be equally as interesting as the people pillar, and just like with people being a fundamental and critical piece of the people, process, and technology processes as well. So with that, I want to thank you for joining. Earl Linforth for Actio Solutions, signing out for the day, and we'll talk to you next time. Thank you.